folks? Canadian Prepper here. Boy, do we have a lot of stuff to discuss today. This is very emergent stuff. I cannot believe where we're at. We continue on our insidious and relentless march towards World War III. Nuclear tensions right now are at an all-time high, but you look outside, you wouldn't know it. You go on TikTok, you wouldn't know it. I mean, sometimes I ask myself, am I just certifiably insane? You know, should they throw the book at me once and for all for interfering with people's attention span on YouTube Shorts by trying to bring them into the real world of things? And then I go on TikTok for just a few minutes and I find myself hours later somehow watching very profane and vulgar voiceovers of Sesame Street characters. I mean, it's very easy right now to be completely oblivious to everything that is going on. What I'm going to tell you today, I mean, if this doesn't drive the point home of the urgency of this matter, and understand that we're living in a day and age where all of this can be happening right in front of our eyes and nobody cares, or the vast majority of people will not care until they are told to care. By who? Well, by the, I hate using the word because it's so overused. Let's just go with legacy media today. I overuse mainstream media. Let's call it legacy media. Apparently, mainstream media is not even politically correct anymore. Yes, the mainstream media conglomerates, the big corporate entities, are now taking offense. Even they're taking offense. Anyways, we have a Russian commander in Donetsk, Alexander Katakovsky. I actually got that one close. He appeared on Russian state TV calling for the use of nuclear weapons because he doesn't believe Russia has the conventional resource to win in Ukraine. Recall, this is on the heels of the United States effectively erecting a no-fly zone in Ukraine because they got MiG-29s coming in from Slovakia, possibly from Poland. You pair that with your more advanced Patriot missile defense systems, and you got yourself the no-fly zone that everybody's wanted for so long. This is going to complicate Russian conventional bombardments, which of course is very, very likely going to push us to the edge. Now, he says that Russia is fighting the entire Western world, which they pretty much are. He says that we know our capabilities and we realize the limits of our resources. And this guy is a commander in Donetsk. He knows what's going on, and he's telling this to Russian people. Are they priming people for the use of a escalate to de-escalate style nuclear strike? That is when you hope that in using a nuclear weapon, fighting stops, you get some kind of ceasefire because they realize you ain't effing around anymore and they agree to some terms. You hope that that's the outcome, and you hope it's just not grounds for the neocons to want to send even more weapons and escalate things even more and evoke Article 5 for whatever reason, because, you know, utilizing a nuclear weapon in Ukraine could constitute a threat to NATO as a whole, and they use that to invoke Article 4 that then goes to Article 5, and then here we go. But most of you won't care, not you guys, but the ones who aren't ever going to see this video, because I'm almost starting to think that I hate using the term shadow ban because there's such a victim mindset to believing that. I take responsibility for the fact that I'm not giving the algorithm what it wants. If talking about nuclear war was cool, maybe more people would see this video, but most people are going to be completely oblivious on TikTok. So let's just keep on going here. He says that there is only one option. He says that everyone realizes the next escalation will be nuclear. I repeat, one of the main Russian commanders in Donetsk, who's on the front lines of this thing, who sees exactly what the limitations of the Russian military are, is saying everyone realizes the next escalation will be nuclear. Everyone? I don't know who this everyone is, but they sure as hell ain't in North America, and probably the better part of Europe, and let's face it, the developed world as a whole. You see, Russia is putting 30% of his budget towards the military. 30%! Do you understand how massive that is? I don't even think the Germans did that in World War II. 30% is a massive commitment. The United States spends the most on their military. I believe they only spend like 3.2%. The Russians, in the best of times, maybe spend 5 to 10%, 30%, guys. Do you see where this is going? Russia knew this day would come. We've been saying this for a long time, that they're going to war with NATO. They're planning, it would appear, for this to be a conventional war because they've kept a lot of their best troops in reserve. They understand what's going on here. And now maybe this commander in Donetsk, maybe he's just below the chain of command, and he doesn't know what the Russians really are holding back. Okay, and remember what the very, very wise former CIA Peter Pry, I know a lot of you are going to get in the comment section, oh, former CIA, you can't believe anything he says. Maybe, maybe not. Anyways, what he said was that it very well may be the case that the Russians are doing what's called the Austerlitz style maneuver, where they are coaxing NATO into a conflict that they know NATO can't win. But according to Alexander Khodorkovsky, it's actually, like if we're taking his purview of the battlefield as what's reality, then the next escalation is going to be nuclear. And everything else points towards that. Putin's absence, the nuclear incident yesterday that occurred, the bombing of the strategic bases, all the other stuff that's going to go on that we've talked about, that we're going to talk about today. We have Yar's nuclear missile that's capable of hitting the US and UK being showboated. And this was strictly for PR purposes. Okay, this is strictly to send a message. In fact, the Missile Force commander, Colonel Alexei Sokolov, he made it clear that this move was aimed at sending a message to the West that the missile is now on combat duty. And if you don't know what happened, it's all over the news today. Well, you know, the underground news, I guess you could say, or the alternative news, or the fringe, edgy news. It's in the propaganda pages as well, because anytime they can blow up the Russian nuclear threat, they do that also. So in some respects, you know, the MSM is on this, but not in a front page CNN sense, not yet. Yesterday it was. With respect to the Patriot missile defense systems, but of course not in the sense or what are the implications of implementing a no-fly zone, which is effectively what it was. And I talked about that yesterday. So anyways, they're now officially, okay, deploying this missile. The thing is, they have 300 of these, easily 300, and a lot more. And this is just their ground-based system. This isn't their bombers. This isn't their submarines. Their submarines are probably where the bulk of the heat is going to come from if it gets thrown. But these in particular, these RS-24 YARs can launch in 7 minutes and deliver 500 kilotons. Pretty small compared to what their Satan missiles, the RS-28, can deliver, which is on a similar mobile platform and can deliver up to 50 megatons. Okay, 10 times the amount. 10 times the amount of what Hiroshima was. Actually, I think we're almost talking like 30 times. 500 kilotons is around 30 times bigger than Hiroshima. So he says that this is clearly aimed at sending a message to the West. It does, however, mark Russia's annual Strategic Missile Forces Day. Apparently, it's a holiday. I don't know if it's a government-paid holiday, but December 17th might have something to do with this, and that's Russia's annual Strategic Missile Forces Day. Now recall that David Pine, our very astute nuclear expert that we have on the channel occasionally, has said many times throughout the year that this is going to be one of those indicators. And in some cases, probably a lagging indicator, because this probably means that things are far, far worse. But these indicators of Russia moving their missiles to the silos in plain sight is for the sole purpose of deterring Washington from doing stuff. This may be a message that if you send those Patriot missiles, shit's going to go down. Russia, just a couple days ago, switched to a preemptive nuclear strike doctrine officially. Now, of course, Putin just threw it out there. Nothing Putin says is by accident. Okay, so if Putin says that they're thinking about something, they already did it long ago. Same thing with the United States. If they said that they're thinking about sending Patriot missiles, they've already done it long ago. They've already been planning to train the guys in order how to do it, whether that's Eastern Europeans that are going to man it or these inspectors on the ground, US mercenaries. Maybe they've been training Ukrainians who are fully capable of doing this and they're going to be commanded somehow remotely or whatever the case might be. Regardless, these Patriot missile systems, it's not just, like one vehicle. It's like a series of, I believe, 8 launching platforms that all have 4 missiles, and there's radar, there's all this other stuff that's I'm not a military expert at all, but I know that it's like a 90-man operation to run one of these Patriot missile systems, okay? So you need people who know what they're doing and who know how to use them. And that means that the concern here is that if the Russians do effectively target the Patriot missile systems, there will be American casualties, potentially, or definitely Eastern European casualties, for which there have already been many for people who are fighting in non-Ukrainian insignia uniforms. Okay, they're fighting as mercenaries. I think the Polish deaths number in the thousands at this point, at least that's the rumor, okay? So, according to the Kremlin, Russia is now ready to act more decisively to show the United States the boundaries of what is permissible. And as I said, these Patriot systems, when paired with MiG-29s that are being sent by other Eastern European countries that Ukrainians know how to operate, is effectively a no-fly zone. Okay, and then when you pair that with all of the other air defense systems that the West has been sending, you get this integrated air defense system, which is going to make it very difficult for Russia to continue with its bombing campaigns. And we might say to ourselves, great, no innocent people are going to have to suffer anymore. But all this is going to do is prolong the war. It's going to prolong the pain and suffering. And what Putin's probably thinking right now is maybe if I just drop a nuke somewhere, maybe we'll just do a nuclear test, something to get the attention of the world so that maybe we can escalate to de-escalate. A policy, of course, they say they don't agree to, but nuclear doctrines, it's all just for show. I mean, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And we're probably going to be the last to know. I encourage you to tune in next week because we're going to have a video that we release that is all about the indicators that you would see that aren't going to be reported on that might point towards imminent nuclear escalation. This is going to be a very, very good video, guys. So please don't unsubscribe until next week. And after next week, you can unsubscribe. Now, according to Vladimir Hazbarov, butchered that one, first deputy head of the International Committee of the Russian Federation Council. Come on, guy, get a different title. He said that the United States is provoking us into a direct conflict with NATO. It will complicate Russian airstrikes. Kremlin has warned this will lead to unpredictable consequences. Unpredictable consequences. Does that mean more sleeper cells, more sabotage acts, more attacks on the grid, more attacks on critical infrastructure? Does that mean more cyber attacks? According to the NSA chief, he just came out today and said, I think Russia's not going to do nuclear. They're just going to go full-blown cyber warfare on Ukraine and everywhere else. It's possible. Will cyber warfare be enough to invoke Article 5? I guess we'll find out. Guys, either way, this Patriot missile system, this is mission creep. Remember, like before the HIMARS were sent, we were talking about how, eventually they're going to send everything. They're going to send tanks, they're going to send planes, they're going to send all of it. This is just mission creep. The definition of mission creep is a gradual shift in objectives during the course of a military campaign, often resulting in an unplanned long-term commitment. Well, who would want that? The military-industrial complex. That's who. Since when have these guys ever cared about the sanctity of human life over profit? Yet, that same good old MSM, Don Lemon and friends, are going to tell us that we're all just crazy. We need to line up, get our medical intervention, shut the F up, and keep watching YouTube shorts. Don't go over to TikTok. Watch all the shorts here. Everything I post on TikTok, I also post on shorts. So just stay here, okay? Don't give all your information to the Chinese, even though we'll all be forced to soon. Anyways, the Russians have also deployed a rare Arctic system to Ukraine. the Tor M2D2, no, M2DT. That would be way too comical if that was the name of it. The Tor M2DT air defense system has been moved to Ukraine. This can deflect massive enemy air raids. Why would you need this if Ukraine's air force was all but diminished? Why would you be moving this Arctic system, which can also intercept ballistic missiles, I do believe? Why would you be moving it there? That tells me the Russians are anticipating some major NATO involvement in this conflict. Recall yesterday we talked about how Poland has aspirations to build the biggest military in Europe, and they're well on their way with the delivery of hundreds of tanks and heavy equipment from the United States and South Korea inbound. We have 3 Russian MiG-31s that were sent to Belarus in the last 48 hours, designed to carry Kinzhal nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles that can hit Britain from there. These missiles, these hypersonic missiles, have a 1,250-kilometer range. They are very, very fast, and they are maneuverable. You can't shoot these things down. Now, contrary to popular belief, and I feel that I should make a short about this, but hypersonic missiles are actually not that fast. Compared to ICBMs, which are like 3 times as fast, we're talking about 17,000 kilometers an hour, they're actually not that fast. But with a ballistic missile, it's just that. You program in the trajectory, and it goes to its destination. It doesn't move, unless you have the multiple re-entry vehicles, the glide vehicles that integrate some like hypersonic features and maneuverability features. But most of them are just, old school rocket science. But these are maneuverable. So in spite of the fact that they're not as fast, you can't shoot them down. It's impossible. So what they're trying to flex here is that, hey, we got our nuclear silos that we're prepping on the ground. You guys attacked the nuclear triad just a few days ago. We got MiG-31s flexing hypersonic missiles ready to hit the UK. An emphasis on the UK because, just like we talked about yesterday, the UK has openly admitted, and why they did this, they probably did it to get ahead of the news cycle, because remember the Russian envoy to UK said that they were going to be releasing some damning evidence that they had that implicated UK intelligence in the Crimean Bridge attack. Do you remember that? Only probably a handful of people who are concerned about this stuff will probably remember that level of detail, but that's what happened. And they never really officially came out with that evidence, although the Kremlin has suggested that not only has UK and US intelligence been implied in that incident, but also in the attack on the nuclear triad, which is a major escalation. I mean, that's just how we're all still here. I don't know. I just don't know. So, yeah, and they've now openly admitted that they've been in there operating, running missions behind enemy lines. Okay, commandos had supported discrete operations in a highly sensitive environment, operations that involve high political and military risk. They would only send guys like that in there to do very, very impactful things which are going to make a difference. So the fact that they did, it could have been to maybe, they're going to say, well, it was for the purpose of rescuing diplomats, getting people out of Dodge, whatever, but I'm pretty sure we can bet at this point that the line keeps being moved, the goalpost keeps being moved, and eventually you're just going to cross the red line. I don't know what exactly that is going to look like, how it's going to materialize. Russia utilizing a nuclear weapon. But recall, the United States also changed its first strike doctrine. So just those two things in itself, guys. The fact that the New START treaty hasn't been honored since this whole thing started. Actually, I think there hasn't been like mutual inspection since 2020. Okay, so there is no strategic arms reduction treaty really that's active, that's being honored by the countries anymore at all. And I mean, even if they were, you wouldn't have the inspectors in there to check. So just that in itself is a major, major escalation of DEFCON, I think. I mean, what do I know? But then you have both the United States and Russia within the span of a month saying that we are scrapping the non-first strike policy. Okay? That means that both sides are on a hair trigger. Okay? Because now you're saying that we're going to do a preemptive strike. The whole point of a preemptive strike is that if you catch wind that your adversary might be deploying their nukes. You want to get ahead of it. Any inkling that they might be doing this. If Putin sneezes the wrong way, we shoot off all our nukes. Now, obviously, there's more checks and balances than that, a lot more. But the fact of the matter is, the tension is incredibly high. And with all of this information I've been laying out for you guys for the last few weeks, if you are still seriously waiting for the legacy media to tell you when shit's going to hit the fan, then plan on only knowing for a very, very short period of time, because by the time they come out and the panic that ensues shortly thereafter with the emergency broadcast system or whatever it's called, the emergency alert system now, that people are going to lose their minds. Could you imagine if right now the emergency alert system started going off? I mean, with the state of things in most Western cities right now, the level of unrest and angst in the world, the level of not necessarily economic hardship, because we haven't even seen nothing yet with respect to that. I'm just saying economic hardship compared to like the bubble of 2020 when everybody was a crypto millionaire genius. The tension right now, when that alert goes off, when people are pulled away from their TikTok scrolling, you know, just imagine the chaos, unprepared people, millions rushing out to the stores, tripping over each other, trying to get whatever they can while they can before it all goes down. I mean, it would be gridlock, number one. So good luck getting to the store unless you have a bike or a means to maybe a motorcycle or something, because, you know, if that thing starts going off, the only thing you can hope for is that most people are going to be paralyzed with fear, and that's going to give you some time, if you are aggressive, to get out there and do what you need to do. But hopefully, if you're watching this channel, you're already squared away. You're already squared away. Speaking of being squared away, I always like to show you guys something new. I picked up Henry AR survival rifle. I don't know why, because I figure it's probably going to be this stupid thing. Make me look bad on camera, Henry. So it has the gun that fits in the buttstock. Okay, this is totally legal in Canada. I'm not working for these guys. I'm not advertising this. We don't sell this. I'm just showing you guys, you know, there's survival rifles. I'm actually changing out this stock because it's too big and bulky and it won't fit in my bug out roll. So what I want to do is get the other stock, which is folding, and it's much more compact, and it's not big and bulky like this. And this is just plastic anyways. This is not really that important. It's not like disassembling your SKS. That was sinful when I did that, and I put that Tapco stock on there. I know, a lot of you gave me flack for that, and I deserve it, because that old wooden stock on those SKSs, those things were built for the trenches, man. That thing will never let you down. But these Tapco doodads, you know, save your money. Anyways, it's repeating 22. So, you know, 22, you can do a lot with a well-placed 22 shot. It ain't no 5.56, but hey, you know, beggars can't be choosers, which is what we'll soon all be. Unless you're prepared. And guess what else we're getting into? Thermals. I've done videos on thermals before, and I can tell you, man, this is not a game changer. This is a force multiplier. This is the definition of force multiplier. Thermal imaging. Never mind night vision. Night vision is 1/10 as good as thermal imaging. You can hide from night vision with relative ease. It doesn't take much. It's really just like hiding, you know, in daytime. If you can hide in daytime, you can hide from night vision. If you're in a forested region or something like that. Thermals, there's ways to block thermals, but it's very, in order to totally conceal your heat signature, it's very difficult. Because over time, the thing that you're using, the cloak or whatever you're using to conceal your heat signature, whether it's like a flipped inside out thermal blanket or something like that, it eventually gets hot. So you give yourself, so anyways, there's not a whole lot of ways to do it, because your body's always radiating heat, especially in the winter time. So something like this, even just for hunting, okay? And these are slightly regulated in Canada. You can't legally get ones that you can mount on guns. You can actually, but you know, there's some fine print, I should say. There's ways to do it, but off the books unofficially, not illegally. I'm not saying, you know, because you can actually, there's stores where you can get it and they'll sell you it, but it's not for that purpose, right? It's those pick rail attachments are for tripods or something. Anyways, former NSA chief Keith Alexander has testified to the Senate saying that Putin will use cyber warfare. He says that Putin knows that if he uses nuclear, he's dead. That's a pretty bold statement. If Putin uses nuclear, he's dead. Well, that assumes that the United States is immediately going to come to Ukraine's aid. This is something that has been a subject of debate. In what capacity will NATO come to Ukraine's rescue if Russia uses nuclear weapons? There's been some high-ranking former generals who say that what will happen is that the United States will conduct a major, and NATO, a major conventional strike on Russian forces. Not a nuclear strike, but a conventional strike, which will immediately elicit a major Russian nuclear strike. Putin ain't gonna die. Putin is dug in deeper than an Alabama tick. That's from The Predator, Jesse Ventura. But he ain't gonna die. He's got bunkers for life. Literally, for the rest of his life, he can live in a bunker quite peacefully. He's probably already there, and that's why he's AWOL right now. So I don't really agree with this, but anyways, he's saying that the Russians are gonna go cyber first. The Russians have very, very good cyber capabilities. We've talked about this on the channel before. They have the abilities to take down power grids, to cause chaos in the banking system. Virtually all of the 12 layers of critical infrastructure, you know, be it heating, waterworks, whatever, they can mess with every single thing. Now, of course, they're only going to do this if it's war time. And they likely, according to David Pine anyways, our resident military expert, they're only going to do this as a prelude to electromagnetic pulse. And so it's going to go cyber attack, EMP, nuclear. That's going to be the chain of events. So once the Russians really start hitting us hard with cyber, that's when you know that there's probably an EMP coming. And they would use the EMP because it would be far more impactful than a tactical nuke. Like an EMP detonated over Kiev would block out the region pretty much permanently. You know, I mean, and I say permanently because it would take years to rebuild the grid. All those transformers would be fried. Hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity rushing into them would destroy most of the transformers. And they could do that to Lviv. They could, you know, I don't think they would go that close to NATO, but they could do it in these regions where they're fighting. And it's effectively what they're trying to do already. So it might occur to them, hey, we can use one of these tactical nukes to achieve the same thing that it's costing us 1,000 times more to do. Literally, because to kill off all this critical infrastructure, it's costing them billions of dollars. So eventually, they might just say, well, we got Patriot missile defense systems, you know, it's going to make this virtually impossible to do what we're trying to do. Maybe we're just going to have to utilize an electromagnetic pulse weapon. One for which there is no equivalent in the United States strategic arsenal, I should add. Because there are EMP weapons which are specifically tuned for that purpose, to be low yield, low radiation, but have a very profound EMP effect, okay? Go and watch all the videos. Just Google Canadian Prepper, Nuclear Expert, and all of our guests will come up. Olaf Scholz, this kind of was funny to me. He was giving this conference to the European Union, and he was talking about how green Europe is. At the same time, talking about how they're now self-sufficient with liquid natural gas. This is just comical because liquid natural gas is the worst in terms of a carbon footprint perspective. Okay, it takes like 3 times the amount of energy, because you gotta like keep it cool and you gotta liquefy it, and then you gotta, you know, build all these other terminals in order to receive it, and it's just the most ungreen thing possible. And they're starting up the coal plants in the UK, and they're using record amounts of coal. Russia is shipping out record amounts of coal. So this is just, it's nonsense, guys. I mean, the whole ship is sinking. The ship is absolutely sinking right now. People are thinking, oh, well, we're seeing a little bit of disinflation right now. Not deflation, but disinflation. So maybe things are turning a corner. No, not at all. You see, oil is everything. Energy is everything. And this business about cold fusion, I did some research into it because I was like, this is kind of suspicious. This seemed like a bit of a Disneyland story for the mainstream media. But really, the reality is that we are nowhere near cold fusion. And this so-called experiment where they are able to generate more energy, it turns out, is actually, it still took like 100 times the amount of energy when you factor in all the other inputs. It was an article that I read on Big Think. I had to do some digging because anytime everybody is singing the same thing in unison, you got to go and do a little bit of digging like that. And I'm like, this is kind of suspicious because that is something right there. All of the energy markets would be shocked by something like that. The oil wouldn't go up 5% like it has in the last 2 days. So it's bullshit. We're not even remotely close to cold fusion yet, much less actually building enough. Okay, if cold fusion was really a viable thing in the near future, you'd have so many companies investing in it. And then you'd also have to contend with all of the other infrastructure that's been built around and the other industry that's been built around all of these other forms of energy. And they're not just gonna, just take it on the chin, right? They're gonna go down with a fight. In the same way that Elon had to virtually fight the entire petro-industrial complex in order to bring electric cars to the masses, which are incredible inventions. Never mind the green. I mean, just the technology it's incredible. Anybody who hasn't driven an electric car, you just do not know. I understand from a prepping perspective, it's not that ideal, but as I've talked about, I'm going off on tangents now because, hey, we're after 30 minutes. If you're still here, then I can talk about anything because I know you're my friend. Maybe, there'd be some idiosyncratic incompatibilities in real life, but, for YouTube, we're friends, all right? So in terms of the benefits of electric cars for preppers, I've always thought that self-driving that didn't require GPS would be very cool because you could send shipments out in a post-apocalyptic hellscape and not have to put somebody in the driver's seat that would risk being, taken out by Mad Max style gangs who are roving around. There's also the fact that, hey, you could put auto drive on while you're shooting a shotgun out the window because you never know, right? You just never know. There's also the renewable aspect. The fact that it doesn't require there's far less moving parts, doesn't require any fluids. I mean, the Tesla that I got, man, I've done nothing to that thing. There's no oil changes, no transmission changes, nothing like that. And it's been a breeze to drive. I mean, yes, I understand that I have all the cameras, and I joke about that all the time, about how Big Brother, it's basically Big Brother's wet dream to get everybody in a Tesla and have the ability to shut off their cars or drive them all to the police station when they don't get their jabs. But still incredible technology. There are pros and cons. I think Elon Musk is the biggest prepper. You got solar roof, you got the boring thing, you got let's build a base on Mars in case the world ends, you got the electric vehicles, you got the Cybertruck, bulletproof Cybertruck. Come on. I think it would be great if I could get Elon Musk on the channel. I'm going to dream big. I hope that one of these days I can get Elon Musk on the channel to talk about prepping, unless this whole thing just ends in the next few months. Because I think Normalcy Norman, in one of our Normalcy Norman videos, we had predicted that something big was going to go down in January, and he got cooked. If you haven't seen that Normalcy Norman video, just go on YouTube, type Normalcy Norman, and you'll find out how this whole thing ends. Maybe. Anyways, I am not confident in the economy's comeback next year, I think that there's going to be a lot of unemployment. I think we're going to go into a bit of a death spiral, but I think it's going to be more stagflationary because I don't think that the price of oil is going to keep going down. In fact, I think now that the strategic oil reserve has been tapped and, you know, they're going to start to reduce the amount that they're taking from there in order to artificially keep the price down, I think people are going to realize that the price of food, the price of oil, especially the price of food next year with the increased costs of fertilizer and all this stuff because of Europe. Europe grows a lot of the world's food, believe it or not. They do. Not necessarily all of the grains and stuff, but they grow a lot of food. Anyways, the Dutch farmer thing, as we're just jumping around all over the place, 3,000 farms, I sometimes wonder, because it's obvious with the liquid natural gas thing, these people don't care at all about the environment. They don't. So it seems like the real purpose of this might have something to do with energy consumption. That there's simply not going to be enough energy to go around. And they're just kind of getting the jump on things. There's not going to be enough energy to be net exporters of food in the same capacity that we currently are. Because it all depends on cheap energy. Okay? And that's going to lead to famines because there's lots of developing countries who, quite frankly, are repopulating or populating at a very, very unsustainable rate. Okay, it's just the truth. It's the fact of life is that you cannot keep having 10 children forever. Okay, eventually, the goal is so that you develop and that you get things like TikTok and artificial womb factories and dating apps and birth control and stuff like that. All these things are supposed to, mitigate the abundance factor that would play into having more children, right? Because now we live in a day and age where people have more abundance than they've ever had in their lifetimes, and they're complaining that the cost of raising kids is too high, which is ridiculous. It's cheaper now to raise kids than it's ever been before. I mean, anyways, how the hell did I get here? How should we end this video? Let's talk about one more thing. Survival Lily knives. We have a few left in stock. I'm not sure if I talked about this at all recently, but she is getting out of the biz because it's just too damn expensive. And her gut is telling her that she doesn't want to be tied up in any sort of international business that requires manufacturing in places like Taiwan where those are manufactured. Okay, Taiwan, they also make some of the world's greatest semiconductors. They also make Survival Lily's knives. So unfortunately, the ones that are out there right now, at least as far as I know, forgive me, Elizabeth, if I'm incorrect about this, but we have the last ones that we're ever going to have. So we have the Apo 1S and the Apo 1T, which is very similar to a Tom Brown tracker style knife. It's a lot more beefier. It's not like your typical blade like this. But yeah, great all-around knife. Probably one of our most popular ones. On that note, I've talked about everything under the sun and more. So I'll leave you with that. And let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on all this madness? Canadian Prepper out.